Here.
Hello, nerds.
Hello, nerds.
Oh my God, it's Sunday morning and we're talking about policy and government and reform. Welcome back to the show, Wendy. It's been a while and it's so good to chat with you again.
Well, thank you for having me, Tom. Yes, it's Sunday morning, and us policy nerd people are up talking about policy. Everybody else is probably on their way to brunch, or
Oh
have.
yeah, yeah. On the West Coast, I'm looking out my window. It's like no activity. I think people are still in bed at the moment.
Yeah, and we're up, and we want to talk about politics. So what's
Yeah.
wrong with us?
Why not? Why not? It's Nerds for Humanity for a reason.
That's exactly right. But it's good to see you.
It's good to see you, Rev. So tell me a little bit about what you ran for Congress. So, like, what's the quick recap on what that experience was like and what you learned from it?
Well, it was one of the most. I think I described it as the most exhilarating, exciting, exhausting,
Mm-hmm.
anxiety inducing experiences of my life. No, Tom, my run for Congress was really great. It really was. We spent 18 months
Mm.
building out a campaign to run against a 32-year incumbent with citywide name recognition. It was very much
Mm-hmm.
David versus Goliath, if you will, from a
Yeah.
spiritual standpoint. But at the same time, we knew what the task was before us. Like I knew what I was signing up for when I initially, thought about running,
Mm-hmm.
and we started from a place of no one really had run against her much.
Mm.
Like she only had like 3 challengers in the last 30 years. And I said, that's just not democracy. DC deserves options. If nothing else, there needs to be other options on the ballot. And I believe that
Mm-hmm.
I'm in a place where I could offer that and offer something different. Because as I was out there starting to talk to folks, prior to announcing, and people were just
Mm-hmm.
saying, oh, everything's always the same. Nothing's ever going to change. We're just sort of relegated to the space of we just got to take what's coming to us. And I'm like,
Mm.
that's not true. You can get active, you can get participatory, and then you can actually change things. The thing that motivated me the most was that I looked at the 2018 primaries from DC and saw that the turnout was 18% citywide.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
So out of like 400,000 people at that time, likely voters, only 89,000 turned out. And I was like, what happened?
Mm.
We're in the seat of the government. I mean, we're DC, we're not Washington. There is a
Mm-hmm.
separation there, but why are the people not turning out? So I set out to find out, and and people were saying there. What's the point? Why participate? The same people keep getting in. The same things keep happening. And I was like, well, we're going to change that. People, felt a little hopeless. So that's kind of where I coined the nickname Hope Dealer. Well, I'm going to go deal some hope. I'm going to,
Mm-hmm.
get people back re-involved in the process and hoping that things can potentially change. So that's why we got out there. We ran. We started early. We ran, with a group of dedicated individuals, a lot of whom hadn't really, been involved in campaigns before. So we built it out as we went along, and we, while we didn't get the outcome that we expected, we didn't win per se, but the race itself, but we won in other ways. And that was the other thing, is that I set out to define the parameters of win differently. My thing was, do we want to win the race? Yes. But if we get more people engaged in the process, is that a win? If we get young people
Mm-hmm.
to sign on and to volunteer and to canvas and to become interested, that's a win. If we are able to make an impact, if somebody votes for me, that's a win. And hey, I got nearly 8,000 votes, which is a good number for a new candidate,
Mm-hmm.
candidate in a race such as that.
Yeah.
So I don't have any regrets, Tom, whatsoever. I think we did a great thing. We had, like I said, we made an impact. People still to this day, I'll see them, they'll say, I'm glad you ran, or I voted for you. And that's really when I would hear those words leading up to the primary, when somebody would post on Twitter, or they say, I voted for you, or they were sending
Mm-hmm.
pictures on primary day of them, choosing my name. It almost brought me to tears, and it made the whole process worth it, because at least those folks decided that I listened to what she had to say. I watched her campaign, and I think that she could be a viable option. So we'll.
Yeah, well, congratulations on going all the distance with that campaign and getting all of those, thousands of people to put your name down, especially when you're, yeah, I think the eventual winner, Eleanor Holmes Norton, like I don't live anywhere near DC, but I know that name.
Right, exactly.
I think she's been in around for a long time.
I
So
mean,
yeah.
and that's why I always told people, I have all due respect for Delegate Norton. My race was not about, I wasn't running against Eleanor, right? I was
Mm-hmm.
running
Mm-hmm.
for DC. I was
Mm-hmm.
running for our city and for the people who were saying to me time and time again on the trail, it's time. It's time to
Yeah.
change course. We're ready for a new direction. Well, if you have people out there who feel that way and they don't have an option, then they just kind
Yeah.
of default to the same thing. So that was what motivated me was, when I was out there running and I'm telling people I'm running for Congress and they
Mm.
say, are you running for Eleanor's seat?
Mm.
And I'd say, with all due respect, that's the people's seat.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
your seat. No matter how long somebody's been in it. That's what I need you all to understand. I need you to take your power back and
Mm-hmm.
understand that these politicians are supposed to answer to you. And whether she's in the seat or me or anybody else, if we're not doing what you sent us in there to do, you have the power to vote us out. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? So
Yeah.
I was doing a lot of voter education as much as I was doing voter inspiration. So it really turned out, as best as it could be.
And now it turned out well enough, and you learned enough, and you felt like it was rewarding enough that you've decided to run again for a different office. So it's not like you decided to go on vacation for sabbatical for a couple years. You're right back in it.
Well, yeah, yeah, either that or I'm a glutton for punishment, Tom. Well, Tom, honestly, after the race, I mean, there was this 2-week period of like nobody talked to me, nobody asked me
Mm.
anything. People were, okay, Wendy, what are you going to do next? What are you going to do next? I'm like, sleep. Yep, I'm
Yeah.
going to
Yeah.
sleep. People wanted you to get right back out there, run for this, run for that. And I said, right now I'm just going to decompress. This has been 18 months of my life
Yeah.
that I put into this and energy and time. And my body, that day after was like, oh, we're resting now. Okay,
Mm.
here's this pain and that pain, and all
Mm-hmm.
that you did. So I had to take a couple of weeks off to recover. But the one thing that did not go away, Tom, was my desire to serve, my desire to help improve the state of Washington D.C. and the condition of our residents and our city that live
Mm-hmm.
here. And I noticed because sometimes people will run for office and then they disappear, and I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
where'd they go? Because the issues that you ran for, they
They didn't change. Yeah.
didn't go anywhere. And
Mm-hmm.
you don't have to be a candidate necessarily to to have an impact and to make change. So ultimately, I that's where I found myself a couple of weeks later. Like I can't, I still got this energy. I need to redirect it somewhere. What makes the most sense and what's strategic? I'm not just going to jump out there willy nilly
Mm-hmm.
and do anything. But what we have is these unique offices in DC known as advisory neighborhood commissioners.
Mm.
And we're basically like the commissioners that are the connection to city council, the
Mm-hmm.
connection to the federal government. We are sort of the overseers, if you will, of a section of our neighborhood, which is called a single member district. Most single member districts have about 2,000 residents they're responsible for, the commissioner would be.
Mm-hmm.
And you do everything from advocate for city services, where I'm running in, we're in Ward 8 in DC, which is the most distressed ward, if you will, of all 8 of them in that make up Washington DC. So we have a lot of inequitable issues over here: lack of housing,
Mm.
lack of infrastructure, and maintenance and things. So there's a lot of issues, and we feel sometimes we get a little neglected over here. So I felt like, well, you know what? I can use my voice to bring attention to some of the things that are happening right here in my neighborhood. The commissioner who was currently here wasn't able to run again. And so I said, well, you know what? I'll start in my neighborhood. I'll run for an office in my neighborhood. So yes, I'm back on the ballot in November. for advisory neighborhood commissioner here in Ward 8. 8D06 is my district.
Wow. Well, so you're not running against a 30-year incumbent, so that's fantastic.
Right.
And it's your neighborhood, and it's probably a neighborhood that you canvassed a little bit in the congressional run as well.
Well, it's one of and it's one of the neighborhoods that I won, if you will, in terms of
Right.
looking at my numbers and out and precincts, and that it was one of the highest vote getting precincts that I was able to achieve in the race. So
so
that's
your base.
It's my people.
Excellent. Well, I have a good feeling about this one, so I'll keep my fingers crossed. And one of the things I noticed was I think you did get an early endorsement from the Forward Party.
I did.
Yeah. So congratulations on that.
Yeah.
And I was actually messaging with Andrew a few weeks ago because I was like, hey, I'm going to do a live stream about the Forward Party. Do you have any representatives you want me to reach out to? And he said, well, what about Wendy? You should talk to Wendy. And I was like, sure. And so tell me a little bit about your kind of journey and relationship with the Forward Party and how it started and where you're at now.
Okay, well, not left, not right, forward. Shameless plug. So
I noticed that.
but you know what? Of course I learned about the Forward Party through Andrew, of course, and I've always and am always going to be in his corner as he's a personal friend of mine, and the part of him that I appreciate the most, and why I got involved with his presidential campaign was his vision and his brilliance and his thought process around improving the lives of Americans and improving the lives of people. He just has this genuineness about him that resonated with my spirit. And so, from the UBI message, that's what pulled me in during the presidential campaign, and this idea of taking care of the least of these and making sure that everybody had enough and leveling playing fields and removing means testing that was, preventing people from getting ahead. All of that, spoke to me. And I was like, okay, I want to get behind this guy, And so I was a part of, eventual staff with the campaign and pushing the message out there as spiritual and cultural outreach director, mainly making the spiritual connection with faith leaders to the message itself and talking about how the concepts of UBI and humanity first, that stuff we preach on Sundays, and those concepts are very similar. And so then, I went along and Andrew, he didn't win the presidency or whatever. He went on and went through that god awful experience of the New York mayor's race. Good Lord. Wow. I thought it took tough skin to run down here in DC. Goodness gracious.
Well, they don't play up there. Yeah.
That was hard to watch, Tom.
Yeah. It was like watching a friend kind of get beat up by a whole crowd.
Some journalist said something about, I can't even remember it now, but it was something like, if Andrew happens to step off of a curb and get hit by a car, I wouldn't mind. I was like, what?
Yeah.
That's crazy. Okay.
Yeah. Or the thing that I was most sort of disturbed by was when people were saying like, well, who is this guy? Where's he from? Right. It's like, what are you talking about? What do you mean, where's he from?
But it's interesting. They spent all that time focused and honed in on him and nitpicking and tearing him down. And they let the dude that's in there slide in. And now they're like, oh my gosh, how did this guy get in there? Oh, you mean the guy that didn't even live in New York, that staged an apartment, his son's apartment, to pretend he lived there?
That was so weird.
Yeah, it was wow. But then out of that, of course, experience, Andrew did some more, soul searching, because what he seems to understand, in my opinion, is that he knew and knows what he wanted to do. He was looking for ways to do it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Ways to, when you're a visionary, when you're driven, you just kind of you try this thing and okay, it's not going to happen that way, so let me try it. Go this route. Okay, if that route didn't work out, but you learn something, you take lessons. And what I saw Andrew doing was taking away lessons from each of those experiences, which ultimately led him to say, okay, so maybe it's not going to be done in the context of an office or in the context of one of the political parties. So
Mm-hmm.
let me go this way. And when I talked with him when he was sharing a little bit about, the idea around Forward Party, and
Mm-hmm.
and I was like, oh, that sounds good, Andrew. That sounds good, because it gives him this opportunity, unshackled, if you will,
Mm-hmm.
to put into place and into practice the things that he's been endeavoring to do, and that is to uplift and empower humanity. And so I'm always going to support him, in things like that. And so the Forward Party just made sense to me, because I just feel like more people involved in the process, not
Mm-hmm.
shackled down, if you will, by having, the expectation that if you're this party, you gotta vote this way. If you're this party, you've got to vote that way. If you believe this, you don't. I'm not into black and white thinking. I'm very much in the gray. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that that's where most of humanity is and lies. And I think we need to allow people to be in that, and not have these rigid expectations that they have to think, they have to vote, they have to believe, they have to love, they have to do things the way that I would do them. I think the more people we free up to be who they truly are, the better for humanity it is. And I feel like Forward Party is an opportunity to do that. Just coming to the table like, listen, yeah, I understand what you believe and you have these strong beliefs, but we all agree that the system needs change. So let's
Mm-hmm.
start at a place, before we start dividing ourselves out into what we stand for and not stand. Let's start at the core of this particular issue. And if you feel like the core of this issue needs to be changed, we can probably find enough common ground to work to get that core changed.
Totally. So what's your kind of engagement with the party? Are you working on it on a regular basis now? And what's your role with the effort?
So I was endorsed by the Forward Party, as
Mm-hmm.
you mentioned earlier, and I consider myself a forward Democrat, because I'm
Mm-hmm.
still living in a space where we have closed primaries. So in order to participate in the political process in Washington D.C., you
Mm-hmm.
have to be a part of a party. And so I am registered with the Democratic Party. Although the office I'm running for now, the Advisory Neighborhood Commission, is a nonpartisan,
Okay.
office. So,
Mm-hmm.
and you don't have to declare one way or the other. But I am also, a part of the sort of the founders circle
Mm.
of Forward Party. So I, get to participate, in conversations and discussions and formations and plans and things of that nature, that will continue to be presented and are certainly evolving as we grow. I was, very much a part of, and excited about the launch, and what we were doing with that.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I guess if you wanted to give me a title, in terms of what's my role, it's more being a part of that founder circle and being one of the sort of people on the front of the Forward Party when it initially started coming together. So
That's super exciting. I mean, maybe you'll look back years from now and say, "Wow, I was there on the ground floor."
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's exciting because, again, it feels like something that can really change. We all want to change the world, or we want to, make the better world possible. All those things that we talk about. So it feels good when you are involved with something that you feel like can actually make that happen. Hi, everybody. I see people saying hi.
Yeah, there's a lot of folks in the live stream saying, "Oh, it's so good to see some OG
Hey.
Yang Gang in there." It lives on. One of the things that I'm curious about, Wendy, is a lot of people when they first hear about the Forward Party, they're like, "Oh, super intrigued," and they're like, "Wow,
Right,
that's great," because
right.
there's this kind of thirst for more options. But
Absolutely.
the thing where I think a lot of people would love to know more is a little bit more around like, okay, so is there going to be a convention, or what are the top 3 policy issues? Like, who are
Mhm,
they going to endorse? Like, are we going to see them emerge, next cycle in 2020? Is it state or local? Is
mhm.
there anything more you could share with folks who are interested and intrigued, but feel like they don't have as many details as they need?
Well, the big thing I'm going to share is if you want to know more about the Forward Party, Twitter is not the place to find it. Um,
Like
you,
many things.
I mean, I love Twitter. It's a beast. It's not for the faint of heart, and I use it. But if I guarantee you that if you want to learn ultimately what the Forward Party is about, our plans, what's coming. Is there a convention? Yes, there's a convention coming up next summer. There's a bus tour coming up,
Mm,
in the fall. There's all kinds of things being planned. Connect with your local state party. We are setting up, we have interest in volunteer groups in all 50 states. Go to a meeting and find out what it's about, okay? Going to a meeting doesn't commit you. Building this party, it feels a lot to me like building a church, right?
mm, mhm,
There's a lot of parallels because people will say, well, what does your church believe in? We believe in God. We say, come as you are. Okay, but what do you stand for? And they automatically want to, you know, put you in this pigeonhole or this silo or this. No, just come. Just come and find out what we're about because what you might be looking for might be different than what someone else is looking for. So I
mhm,
don't want you to come based on and having a particular expectation. I just want you to come and be informed, and then you decide if it's for you. The convention, yes, that's the part where we're going to start talking about and building out a platform. But
mhm,
people are already expecting us to have 57 policies listed, and we just birthed in not last month. It's been around 2 months. But people have forgotten about what it takes to build something. We're not just trying to build some fly by night thing where we can
mhm,
come and be a disruptor. We're not running anybody in 2024, for the presidency. So and it's like no matter how often we say that, no matter how many times we tweet that, we still get this, you're just gonna be a spoiler, you Jill Stein, Ralph Nader, Russell.
mhm,
And I'm like, I'm gonna need y'all to woosah for real because if you would listen to yourselves, most of the people are saying you're funded by Republican PACs. You're a Republican. You're a shadow Republican
mm,
grifter. But somehow we're going to steal votes from the Democrats. Like
mhm,
it's not even connecting. So listen to so if we are that, if that's what you believe, that we're some kind of shell Republican party, then what would make you think that the Democrats are going to somehow suddenly vote for us? It doesn't make sense. Your argument's not making sense. So it's coming from an emotional, irrational place. It's not coming from an informed one. So what I would say to people is, as we are building out our policy, come and bring your voice. That's the whole idea behind Forward Party. We want everybody's voices at the table. We don't want voices excluded before they even come in the door. How about you come and get some information, find out what we're doing, because the main thing we're focused on and the main thing that we have learned is that before you can get any particular policies implemented, you got to fix the system. We got
mhm,
to get some electoral reform. We got to get ranked choice voting. We got to get nonpartisan open primaries before we can even start. And that's been our issue, is that we haven't dealt with the foundation, and we've tried to fix the house when it's the foundation that's cracked. So where Forward Party is we're trying to go in and start to repair the foundation. You don't, and that's a spiritual, sort of concept where you don't build a house on sand, because
mhm,
it will fall apart. But if you build it on solid rock, on solid ground, so come help us build the ground. That's what we're doing. We recognize that the foundation of this country is cracked and we're teetering. It's
mhm,
cracked in half and we're teetering. One side or the other is about to fall off. We're trying to get in there and fix and seal the foundation so that once we seal the foundation and get that in place, then we have a country that we can build from that's more reflective of the people who are in it versus us versus them type of approach.
I love it. Yeah, and I just had yesterday Sal Albanese in New York City, from New York City, who's advocating for
Mhm.
open primaries and top 5 voting in New York City, and we were talking about how that's uh, kind of manifested itself in what seems like a very positive way in Alaska,
Yes.
and how amazing it would be if we had more of that throughout the country. So it sounds like that's going to for sure be one of the big pushes for the Forward Party.
That's been the big push,
Yeah.
and that somehow got drowned out. That was what we introduced. The first two things we said: ranked choice voting, open primaries, and Andrew started pushing for those even before the Forward Party launched. So
Yeah, yeah.
that's
Hmm.
always been the beginning. It wasn't until we said party that somehow people, oh, it just, it kind of short
Hmm.
circuited people. And all of a sudden they wanted us to have, all of these policies and that. So again, I want people to just understand that this is a marathon, not a sprint.
Hmm.
We're just introducing something new to the system because it's time. And we want as many diverse voices, at the table. As a minister, I consider myself a progressive, forward thinking Christian, if you will.
Hmm.
But I have people who follow me who are atheists. I have people who follow me, who are Wiccan, and I don't tell any of them, oh well, no, you can't follow me. You can't visit my church. You can't listen to my messages because you don't believe exactly the same things I believe, or you don't. I want to be the type of person where anybody, can feel like they have access, that I don't make any distinctions one way or the other. And that's how Forward Party is that yes, you might get in there and some people might have some different beliefs than you have, but that does not negate the fact that you all have some things in common. And let's
Hmm.
that you can start from that common place and have a conversation before we start talking about and getting to the things that divide us. And so that's what drew me to even the Forward Party message. I see and I understand and I feel what we're trying to do. And it may not be understand we're operating on a different frequency. And so if you're not on that frequency, you may not, ultimately see the bigger picture of what
Hmm.
we're endeavoring to do. And that's okay. That's why I'm saying, please, if you want more information one way or the other, find the Forward Party group in your state and go to a meeting just to get the information. Be informed. Don't get caught up in the emotion of it and go in there. If it's not for you, you don't have to go back. Nobody's going to make you sign anything. Nobody's going to make you, donate any money. People are like, oh, well, you're grifting money. Well, it takes money to get these things started, but nobody's making you give. You don't have to give. If it's not for you, it's not for you. And it's okay. But what we don't want to do is demonize the people who feel like that it is for them, because that's what we're trying to, that's the kind of thinking that we're trying to address.
One of our members, want to see is asking, is the convention going to be in Vegas? Where's the convention going to be?
um, don't quote me on it, but I believe it's Texas. No, that's the thing happening in September. Well, there's a sort of big meeting happening the weekend of September
Uh
twenty
huh. Like a
second, like the
planning
kickoff.
meeting or something.
Yeah,
Hmm.
the kickoff planning convention meeting is happening in Texas.
Hmm.
In a couple weekends, September 22nd through 24th. So had to get a bigger space for that because at first it was just going to be like Forward Party Texas, and they are on the move down there. But then so much interest was generated, had to get a bigger space. So don't quote me on the convention space yet, but I don't think it's Vegas, but I'm not sure.
Well, we'll be waiting with bated breath,
Yes,
for
please.
sure. I think one thing that you mentioned that people may not instantly recognize is that this is a party that it sounds like it's still in its formative phase,
Very much.
and that could be actually a big positive if you want your voice heard. It's not one of those parties where it's like, these are our 57 positions. You either for us or against us. And, that's it. It sounds like there's openness to a grassroots input and discussion.
It's exactly right. And that's what we're inviting and that's what we're asking for. And so that's why, and when I talked about not focusing on like a 2024, presidential, the other assumption people are making is that we are pulling this party together specifically to challenge in national races. There are over 400,000, nearly 500,000 local and elected seats, because that's where the foundation starts. Foundation doesn't start up here. It's local, state, and local offices. They have way more impact on our lives than the presidency of the United States. Those are the races that we're focused on. We're trying to fix the foundation. We'll get to the national, but if you start fixing the bottom, the top will fix itself. You understand what I'm saying? So, excuse me. Please remember that we're in our infancy. We didn't sit back, behind closed doors and draw up a big scheme of policies or whatever, and then say, okay, that's the exact opposite of what we're trying to do here. We're actually trying to build an authentic, from the ground up. That's why I said it's not not a sprint, it's a marathon that involves as many voices as possible. As many voices as possible. The only voices that we will probably not feel comfortable in the forward party are extremes on one side or the other. What we're trying to do is create a space where these extremists are not able to have the type of influence that they tend to have in some of the other parties that we see right now. Because when you get to extremisms and it's us versus them, or you're either with us or against us kinds of things, then nothing gets done.
Yeah, we know, we see that every day.
Stuff done.
Yeah.
So we can argue all day long about where do you stand on this and where do you stand on that. Can we talk about that after we talk about can we talk about the open, getting open primaries on the local ballot? Can we huddle around supporting candidates in your local jurisdictions who are in support of ranked choice voting? Can we get initiatives on the ballots in some of these states? Let's do that. We can talk about the other stuff later, because we may find that we don't agree on certain things when it comes to that. But on this, we agree. So let's put our heads together. Let's throw our support behind some of these local folks. This young lady in Alaska is a tremendous example of what we're trying to do with the forward party. A Democrat, she ran and won in, final four, I think they are, top four, whatever one is in Alaska, but she won, so she has with 51% of the vote.
Yeah.
So that's what we're trying to do is prevent people from running for office and getting elected and with 31%, with 36%. That's reflective of everybody, and they did that because they have ranked choice voting and nonpartisan open primaries in Alaska, and we need to do that across the entire country.
Yeah, it's impressive that the winner basically was able to get the one of the Republican candidates' supporters to kind of put her as number 2. And basically the winner was someone that could appeal to more both parties, which is, I know it sounds crazy, but that's kind of a good thing. Yeah.
And this is what we've been trying to say. So this is all we've been saying that we're trying to do as forward party. So it was very nice to actually have an example laid out to people. Say, see this. This. Sometimes people need to see it, because people are saying, oh, that's not possible. It'll never happen. That doesn't make sense. You're not going to get Republicans to come over and vote for and all that. And it was like, you know what? Let's just take a look and see what happened in Alaska, because what happened in Alaska is possible, and it can be duplicated across the country, and that's what we're endeavoring to do. But it starts from recognizing that the foundation that we're on right now is not sustainable, it's not stable, and it needs to change. And if you believe that, then the forward party may be the space for you.
Love it. Well, Wendy, I know you've got to run to another commitment, but it's been great catching up with you, and thank you so much for joining the program.
Yeah, I thank you so much, Tom. And if you want to find out more of everybody, of course, you can go to forwardparty.com to get more information. If you want to find out more about my little neighborhood race, go to RevWendyHamilton.com, and you'll see information about my race for ANC. I'm out here, so I'm going to always be someone who's going to champion issues, causes, organizations and groups who are trying to improve the lives of the country. And this is my purpose. This is my call. And so if you have any questions of how I got here, that's how.
Love it. Well, have a great rest of your weekend. And with that, we'll say goodbye, nerds.
Goodbye, nerds.
See you next time, Wendy.
Okay,
Bye.
bye.
All right. Rev Wendy, back in the nerd zone. Haven't seen her in a while. So impressed that she's, you run for Congress, it doesn't work out. It's very easy to kind of say, hey, I'm going to take a couple years off. But it's so exciting to see her kind of putting her efforts not only into her own local campaign, new campaign, more local, smaller, probably way more achievable, not running against a 30-year incumbent. Maybe if there's any lesson learned, if you're thinking about running for Congress, taking on 30-year incumbents, we've seen this many times that it's really hard to do. Sometimes it can happen, but it's definitely a high difficulty race to run. So hopefully we'll see Wendy get the W in November for her new campaign to represent her neighborhood and its interests with the city council. I think that sounds awesome, and appreciate her sharing, her take on the Forward Party. It sounds like the policies are coming together, but they're kind of intentionally doing the listening tour, and they'll have the convention. So if you have a strong view on these things, and you're like, hey, I wish they would advocate for X or Y or Z more, there's an opportunity for you to get involved and to get your DNA on that Forward Party platform. So I myself just signed up on their California Party information form. So hopefully I'll get some more info about what they're up to, and contribute in any ways that I can, and keep sharing the information with you all as I get it. I want to take a minute to thank the people who make this channel possible. So if you're watching this and you're like, wow, Sunday morning, dude is talking about policy. Like, why does he keep doing this? Part of the reason is that I have these channel members who are helping support the cost of running the channel. And more importantly, that tells me like, hey, people value this stuff. And I should just keep trying to produce content more consistently, and keep people informed about cool policy innovations and candidates and experts and charts and data and things like that. And at the highest level of supporters. So if you're watching this on YouTube, just click the join link. It says join. That's how you become a member. There's different levels. It starts as low as $1.99 a month. And the senior vice president is Soldier One. So thank you to Soldier One. And he's been a supporter for 29 months now. So OG nerd. Then you have our VPs, who are fantastic as well. And those are Kristen Slevin and Bike. Kristen's been with us for 32 months. So amazing. Thank you, Kristen. And thank you, Bike. And then at the hardcore level, in order of tenure, we have Gene, David, DK, Jekalego, Kirsch, Mr. History, Mona, Vaughn, who I think was in the chat, Yang Den, Robert, Dean, Stat, Galessa, Jay Perrin, AH, Dana, Jason, Parth, and Daniel. And this live stream is also sponsored partly by StreamYard. So thank you to StreamYard for helping us make this live stream available. And then at the entry level, our verified nerds, starting with our oldest members, is Lisa, Albert, Brandon, Arez, Sophia, Doris, Emerald, Ben, Rasta, James, Emma, Hui, Ira, Shoni, Jameson, Dr. William, Karen, Ardent, Zemery, Mai, Brittany, Warren, Wanna See More, who's also, I think Wanna See was asking, hey, is this thing in Vegas? Lucky, Kevin, Nell, Toby, Jeremy, David, and Nicholas. And overall, who are the oldest and youngest nerds across all levels? The youngest nerds who recently joined are David Collison, Nicholas Hensley, and Jeremy Salmons, all a month or less old. So welcome to the young nerds out there. And the OG Nerds for Humanity are Lisa Childress, Jean Lim, and Kristen Slevin. Maybe I'll go to all the 32-month people. Albert Tom, Brandon David, Arez, and another David. So thank you all for your support. I am gonna do, yes, Vaughn, we did do the shout out to you, of course. Tom needs to be the data and statistics guy. Well, I will definitely be up for, at a minimum, interviewing forward party representatives about the data and statistics that support the policies they're advocating for, or even data and statistics about which states are they going to prioritize to try and get open primaries and top five voting. So if you're watching this and you're in the forward party and you want to help get the word out the same way that Wendy did, but you want to maybe dig into, like, if I had some more time with forward party people, I would probably ask them, you've got a 50-state organization. Which states are you going to prioritize to try and implement the election reform? And are you going to try and, converge on one or two, or are you going to try and implement these things across the board? How are you making that decision? What data are you using? So if there's any interest there from the forward party, let me know. You can hit me up on Twitter, or you can email me, tom@nerdsforhumanity.com. The other thing I would say is, oh, Vaughn is saying Jeremy would be a great co-host. Jeremy, let me know if you want. Actually, Jeremy, we have a members only panel coming up, I think not next week, but the week after. So hopefully you'll be able to make that and we can talk about whatever issues are of interest to people. And let's see, my last comment on the forward party is I'm looking forward to learning more, and I might try and make it to the convention, and maybe I might hit up a local California event if they have anything in the Bay Area. So you know, let's all keep watching, keep learning, and then speaking of the forward party, I promised the audience, if a tweet I did had 50 or more likes, I would do a analysis in response to the Kim Iverson interview about the forward party. I haven't forgotten about that. I will work on that this weekend, maybe even later today. So definitely subscribe to this channel if you want to make sure you get it. And if you haven't been able to join as a member, but you do want to help the channel, please consider, you made it this far into the live stream, so consider liking and subscribing. That helps. And sharing is a big deal. And then comment below if you have topics that you want me to hit in the future. I read all the comments and respond to most of them. So with that, we'll say goodbye, nerds.